Red.
That's a huge boost for the club because I suppose this is the culmination of a lot of years of hard work and graft by an awful lot of people on the ground, and it's not just an occasion for the players and their families but the whole greater community and supporters and people who are doing an awful lot of unseen work behind the scenes. So it's a day out for them, and it's a special occasion. You know, it's something that we've always cherished, I suppose, in this club, and it's great to be back there again, especially after such a gap.
It's been a long and eventful year, I suppose, but you've shown plenty of character to get this far, haven't you?
Absolutely. I mean, that night when we left Park Equive back in June, I think early June, the first week of June, nothing seemed to go right on the night, but there were certainly extenuating circumstances as well. And when we rationalised it ourselves a week later, we definitely came to the conclusion that we probably weren't as bad as we appeared in the night, and maybe we made Piercy look a little bit better, but we had a lot of soul searching to do, and full credit for that must be given to the players, because the players were absolutely superb in the weeks and months that followed. They turned it around themselves, and they wanted to turn it around. There was an awful lot of character had to be shown, and they showed it in spades, but we knew they always had that anyway, but it's just a matter of bringing it out.
I suppose it was better to get a wake-up call like that in early June rather than getting it in July or August.
Yeah, well, I suppose, you know, the backdoor system over the last number of years has its detractors, but I mean, it has worked certainly in our favour this time, in that the second chance does give you a chance to regroup and kind of improve on things, and it makes you look at everything in a different light and a different perspective. I mean, we see it on the national stage this year with Tipperary again. A wake-up call like that can be the best thing that ever happened, and it certainly in our case has worked in our advantage, yeah.
And I suppose the preparations have been kind of tailored this year, I suppose, or that's the way it looks anyway from the outside, and that you have improved as the year has gone on, that kind of every display is kind of been a step up from the previous one.
Well, I suppose, Dennis, to be fair, we put an awful lot of work into the early part of the season in strength and conditioning work, and it took us a bit of time to get our feet when it came to the game situation. I won't say we neglected the hurling, but we tried to get our fitness levels up to an acceptable standard, up to a serious standard, to be able to compete later on in the season. And it might have hindered us early on in the season, but it has shown its benefits in the last number of weeks, because the matches have been coming thick and fast, which doesn't allow a whole lot of time for training in between now, because it's been all about rest and recovery for the last number of weeks in between kind of championship games.
And does that help the team more, that you're playing a match week after week rather than kind of having a 2 or 3 week break where you might get a bit rusty?
Well, certainly, if they're relatively evenly spaced, you know, you do gather momentum as you go through a championship campaign, especially if you're winning, and you can almost run an adrenaline thereafter. But ideally, we would probably have liked a bit longer before the final. But you know, it does have its plus sides. There's no doubt about that.
And is there any fear that Stars having an extra week off in between, like since winning their semi-final, will be a factor?
That's a moot point. I mean, I think they've had 3 weeks of a break between their quarter and semi-finals, and 2 weeks now from the semi to final. There's nothing brings on a team like good championship fare. So, you know, there's plus factors in going fresh into a final, but there's also plus factors from our perspective in that we've been at it in high intensity championship games, and it has improved us as we've moved along, you know. So I think those two things would probably even themselves out anyway when you get to Sunday.
And to what extent, as a management group, would you analyse Sar's game, like compared to just going out and playing your own game?
Well, I suppose I've been watching Sars, and I mean anyone else was involved in Cork hurling. I've seen a lot of them, particularly at underage level over the last few, so I'd be very familiar with their players at this stage. They're to my mind, looking at them from the outside, they have very few weaknesses, if any at all. They're all good, comfortable hurlers, and I know something like ourselves, it's the product of a pretty extensive underage system over the last 10 or 12 years, where they've put an awful lot of work in. They've won a couple of minor championships, and that gave them the springboard to future success, and there's no doubt we know we're up against it, because they're a very talented team. Reaching a third final says it all, really, you know. They probably took their eye off the ball a little bit last year, but I mean, that's to be expected because of the hype that surrounded winning the final the year before, their first, I think, since 1957. But
yeah.
3 in a row, they're back there again, that says it all. And the manner of their victory over Erin's Own in the semi-final kind of exemplifies from me. They looked very comfortable on the day, I thought.
And is there any fear that county final they might overawe your lads, whereas Stars know what it entails?
I suppose from our perspective, we probably would have at underage level, minor under 21, an awful lot of our guys would have county medals at that level. Now it's another step up again, admittedly at senior level, but one of the things we've been impressing on the players since is that we're going down to play the game and not the occasion. You're right in that sometimes hype can take over in these situations, but we will be making strenuous efforts, I can assure you, to ensure that doesn't happen, and we're going down to give a very good account of ourselves and play the game that's in front of us. These occasions are great, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's whoever brings the cup home will be celebrating the loudest afterwards.
Red.